Hey YouTubers, Motard Yoda out. It is the beginning of 2021 and I am back on the 510. So, already 2021 is doing pretty good. Like being out on my little girl. She's got her new clutch cable installed, and I am not leaking oil, or I should say I'm not leaking dot 4 anywhere, so I am very happy. January. It is 63 degrees outside in the ATL, and I am going to get out for my first ride of 2021. And while I'm out, do my top 5 reasons why I love my SMR 510. Now technically I could probably call her a 530. She is big bored, and as a big bore her CC's jumped from about 510 to over 530 actually. Trying to squeeze every little bit out of her as I can. Husqvarna over the years has taken a very basic design and produced many different motor sizes as far as displacement, cc's, horsepower, bore and stroke, purpose. They were all over the board. A lot of that has to do with how the company transitioned from a Swedish company to an Italian company to BMW. Further complicate things, they moved production facilities all around. This particular bike is a 2008. I actually have 2 of them, both of which are SMR 510s on the title and registration. This one is big board. My other one is undergoing the work right now, and I should have her up to snuff pretty soon to where she'll be able to compete with this one. But for now, this bike right here, she's pretty much the beast in the stable. She is nothing but a hooligan bike. I mean, there is nothing that you want to do on this bike that is legal. You get on this thing and you hit that throttle, doesn't matter what gear you're in. You want a wheelie, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th gear, all options. You want to do the twisties, you want to go off-road. All of these are viable options with this bike. In fact, the TE 510, TE 450, probably a way more successful bike here in the States. I have seen some of them around town. I've not seen another SMR. I do see them come up for sale on Facebook. And I have talked with many guys who have them. But here in Atlanta, I don't know of any, or at least I haven't seen any. I'm sure there's a few out there, I just haven't seen them. The TEs you can find, they're a little bit more built for off-road use. Got a longer wheelbase, different suspension setup. They come stock with the 21 up front, 18 in the back. But this bike, she is my baby. She is so much fun. If I was to describe her in terminology such as, say, dinosaur, she would be a velociraptor. That's the best way to describe her. She's a raptor by nature. She does not like to go at constant speed. She just wants to go faster, faster, faster. She doesn't want to stay legal. She wants to break the law. And when you're sitting on her, you almost feel like you have to do something like that. It's a very different feel. The 701, she's a comfortable, bigger bike, and you can ride her all day and stay under control. But this one, not going to happen. So, coming up with a list of 5 things that I love about this bike, really not a hard list to put together. I can come up with 10 or more if I think about it. There are some downfalls to this bike, I'm not going to kid you. There are some issues with it. Getting parts, constant maintenance, oil changes, filter changes, tweaking this, tweaking that. I mean, I've got 2 of them, and it's rare that both are working at the same time. It's just too much work for this to be a daily type of a vehicle. Now, I think if you wanted one this small, everyone talks about the FS 450, the race bike that Husqvarna produces, and obviously that's a awesome bike for flat tracking, but it's not street legal. In too many states, it's an issue, yo, to pay in. It's not an option, right? But guess what? The 501, the FE 501S, I believe, is the dual sport that you can make not only street legal, it is street legal, but convert it mostly to sumo. And that in of itself is a huge advantage for anybody who wants to go contemporary with a small bike. And frankly, I'm going to be looking at that. I'm curious to know what it's got, because I've got a feeling I might want one, and she would be a good ad, no doubt. Right now, how you doing, buddy? I appreciate it, dude.
Ready to go on that motherfucker, ain't you?
That's a Supermoto. It's a Husqvarna.
Oh, okay, yeah.
She's a 510. I've got a big board, so she's.
I should have seen that. I didn't know, man. That motherfucker, man, it looks good too when you're riding it.
Oh, dude, it is.
Most of them, you know, they don't look right.
This.
You know what I'm talking about? They don't look.
Well, it's hard to kind of trick them out the way that makes everybody happy. In other words, guys kind of go crazy with them. They take the stock ones and they'll make them either race bikes where they're flat tracking them,
Yeah.
or they'll just go complete hooligan, meaning that they're going to have some wild patterns on there. And I kind of go different ways. I've got several bikes. I went clean with this one.
This one looks. That's crisp.
I appreciate it, man.
Good.
I appreciate it. You know, one of the big reasons is it just is low brow for the police, all right?
You don't want like that big old pow.
You don't want that. You don't want them.
Looks like you're riding. You need to get up and go.
That they're thinking, oh, that's just a little old white bike, dude. But my heart and soul of these 2008s, dude, just so much fun.
Man, give it up. Man, I like that, man. You got it going on, man.
I appreciate it. A little fan love here at the Shell. That's just too funny. I don't think that guy even knew that he lost his. And it's. I gotta check. Dude, you lost your hubcap! You lost your hubcap! No, 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 no! Dude, you lost your hubcap! That's you, dude.
Oh, wow, thank you.
You know, you came through that turn, and I was at the light, and you were gone, and I thought to myself, holy crap, did that thing come off his wheel?
So, that's awesome, man. Thank you for letting me know.
Not a problem, man. I saw that ride. I said, I gotta run this guy down. You're welcome, man. Nice ride. Don't tell me, what year is that? 58?
57.
57. Beautiful.
Lots of the baby birds.
Yeah, I love it. Beautiful car, man. Go enjoy the day.
Didn't expect that to happen.
No, but I saw it and I said I was gonna put it in my backpack, but then I was like, by the time I got it, you'd be gone.
I wouldn't have known. Thanks for letting me know.
You got it, bud. Well, today has been super exciting, and I haven't even begun to do my video of what I love about my SMR 510. I think I'm finally going to get a little bit of space to get her done as we move into this single track here. We've had all kinds of interesting stuff going on today, and I hope I didn't get myself a flat tire moving around and on that junky part of the road. I went in places that I normally do not go. That bothers me a little bit, but we'll see. I think I'm okay. That dude lost his hubcap, and on that vintage 57, it just would have been a bummer if he got home and noticed it was missing. So I had to do my part, and I feel good about that. Boy, this bike is so much fun. It's just too hard to list. Just 5 items. But I'm gonna try. So for starters, how can you not like the sheer size of this thing? I mean, she's small, and there's no doubt that light frame and real skinny profile, and the way she feels, I just love it. It's like being on a dirt bike, literally on the street, and being able to go do whatever the heck I want to do. So for me, the lightness of this is a huge plus. I can just throw her around any shape or form that I want. She just goes. She doesn't care. She's built for this kind of cornering, the twisties, the flat track, almost any kind of racing that you'd want to do. The short history on these bikes is just that. Back from the early 2000s through to 2010, and even after that, these bikes were a dominant force in the Supermoto roadways and races. And to this day, there are guys still taking them out, competing against modern day bikes and doing well. But for the street, they're just so light and nimble, and I love that. Of course, one of the great things about these bikes is they just love to wheelie. There's no other thing that they want to do. They just have this thing about getting up on one wheel. You can do it at almost any speed. So here we are at, what, 50 miles an hour? Kept going. Now if I had more roadway, I would have been able to keep going, but I don't like doing turns at 80 miles an hour. I kind of can, but that would suck if I got in a little bit of an issue doing this video. So I'm not going to chance it. It's my peanut man, a boiled peanut guy. He's out there all the time. I usually give him a little slow roller, but not today. So wheelies on this bike, just effortless. I'm not going to kid you. They go for days. I have ridden in 4th gear or 5th gear at speeds that are crazy. I don't know that I've gone over 100 yet. I may have. I know I've gone in the 90s, certainly 95 I've seen a couple of times when I've landed. And I can do that in 4th gear or 5th gear. I have not tricked this out. In other words, I have not done anything to make her want a wheelie. She still has almost stock sprockets. The stock on these are 15 up front and 42 in the back. I've put a 43 in the back, so I did give her one little bit, one extra tooth, which is really nothing in the world of supermotos and dirt bikes. One tooth on the back. Most guys would say, why did you even change? And I think they're right. Why did I even change? I don't know. I think it had to do with where I was, meaning as a rider, how I was using this bike, and I was so comfortable with the 42 back there, I just didn't want to do anything dramatic, so I went to a 43. Of course, I also got lucky in that the 43 came along in a package deal for some parts I was buying, so it didn't cost me anything. And ever since I made that change, I feel like I've hit the sweet spot with these bikes. And I say that because now I've got this perfect kind of feel as far as torque combined with control, combined with high end for what I like to do. I can go out on the interstate and go 110 on this bike if I want to. I generally don't. I generally stay off of the interstate, but if I need to go out there, I can run with the big boys. And there's not a lot of bikes in the 260 pound range that can do that, but this can. So I'm not changing it. I'm keeping her at 43, at least for the short term. Which brings me to the number 3 reason why I love this bike, and that is how unique she is. I mentioned before, the SMR 510, not a popular bike here in the States. Yeah, there's some around. I see them, like I said, on Facebook Marketplace. I see guys posting in my Supermoto groups, and most all are far away. Occasionally I'll see one in Florida, North Carolina, maybe Virginia, New York. The vast majority of the ones that I see are out west, California, Colorado, Texas. And really, I would say 4 out of 5 that I see guys posting, man, they're over in Europe. I gotta use Facebook Translator just to see or understand what they're even talking about in their posts. The most common language seems to be Italian. I am Italian. I don't understand many words in Italian, so I'm not able to look at any post and understand what they're trying to find out. But my point is, these bikes, they are rare here in the United States, and I like that. Very few people have seen them. I get bike love all the time, and I like having a bike that is unique. I don't want to have one that every other guy on a Supermoto is riding. That's just not in my hitting zone. So I'm not a hater on any of those bikes. I mean, KTM, arguably the king of Supermoto right now, if you put together all their brands and the bikes that they produce. Undoubtedly they have more bikes out there under the Supermoto genre compared to any other brand. So what are you gonna do? I'm not gonna hate on them. They are critical, as far as I can see, in the world of motorcycles, and in particular the types of bikes that I like to ride. So have at it, KTM. I'm just gonna pass on your Supermoto offerings. I'm gonna stick with my 2008 to 2010 SMRs as long as I can, until I can't find somebody who wants to sell one. And then of course you can't rule out things like the Husqvarna. The Aprilia, as I mentioned in another video, is off my list. Just too much of a race bike. This bike is similar to the Aprilia in many ways. It's probably more popular because the motor is a little more stable compared to the Aprilia, and although these motors can explode, it just seems like over the years the Aprilia has a reputation, and probably the numbers to substantiate that reputation, as being the most explosive motor on the market. It overcame a lot of those problems 2009 and afterwards, but for a while there it just was not a bike that anyone really wanted unless they were racing. And they're still to this day probably more rare than this bike, but I don't want one of them. I'll take this as a rare bike, or the Husqvarna 570, another one in my stable, which I'll do a video on soon. These are the bikes that I get the most fun out of, for sure. And I like that uniqueness. I like that rareness about them, so you don't see them on the road. So that's three things on that list of 5 reasons why I love her. I said the lightness, and You know, I didn't get into the specifics of that. You know, her dry weight is under 260 pounds. It's, I believe, 255, 258, something like that. I have streamlined this bike, meaning that I took off a lot of the junk, and I have gotten her to where now, with a tank of gas filled up, when I put her on the company scales, she's about 268 pounds, so she's pretty light. That weight is right in my hitting zone. I absolutely love how nimble she is. So yeah, I'm digressing a little bit here, going back to the first reason why I love her, but I just realized I didn't mention the actual weight, so that's why I brought it back up. The second reason, of course, the wheelies. That just goes without saying. She is so much fun to wheelie, and that goes for all areas where you ride her. In other words, you can wheelie on the asphalt, you can wheelie out here, no problem. You can wheelie on the tarmac, on the flat track, on the dirt, in a field. You can wheelie in a small parking lot with this bike. She is super torquey, but she's easy to control, and that's something that you don't see with a lot of bikes in this power range. And of course, the third thing I brought up, which is the rareness of her, that's something that I can't put a value on. This bike is just so uncommon. It's not a unicorn, but it's certainly unusual, different, and that's on the list for sure. Now, the fourth reason why I love this 510, well, it's real simple. It's the power. And what I mean by power is, before, I think I mentioned that she's like a velociraptor. She's just edgy. She's just hard. She's mean. Right now, she's biting. She's biting me. She's like, come on, let's go. Let's do this. I am fighting to keep her at this speed. I am fighting. The motor does not want to go at that speed. It wants to go faster. And I love that. I love that all it wants to do is get that throttle opened up and go faster. That is a very fun feeling. It's not a cruiser. It's not a naked. It's not a sports bike. It's basically like a wild stallion, and I gotta not only tame her, I've got to keep taming her every time I ride it. It's a constant challenge. It's a constant battle. I know guys get pretty comfortable on their bikes, and I'm not gonna tell you that I'm afraid of her. I'm not. But to think for 2 seconds that I have complete control over everything that she's capable of doing would be a lie. I consider myself to be an accomplished rider, but these bikes, the horsepower to weight ratio is just, it's a ratio that you don't see much. And what that means is there's potential for bad things to happen pretty fast. I did the math, and the 701, which posted about 76 horses on the dyno, was, I believe it was 0.23 or 0.24 on the horsepower to weight ratio, something like that. I punched in the numbers for this, and it was pretty much the same. I want to say it was almost identical. So what kind of horses does this 510 put out? Well, originally, when it was a 510 and it didn't have a lot of mods, it was low 50s. It was around 52, 53. And then we started doing mods, and we started pushing up the torque, pushing up the HPs. And little by little, we got her up. The big bore added about 3 or 4. So that got her up to 56, 57. And then in 2021, 2019, I came upon a parted out bike from Colorado. Guy who had a motor explode, and he had Marchesini wheels. He had a dual Leo Vinch titanium system, headers, pipes, everything. I'm not going to say they're in mint condition, but they're in darn good, almost perfect condition. So I snatched them up, and I am not regretting that investment one bit. I spent a lot more than I ever thought I'd spend, but in hindsight, I am very, very happy I did, because when we put that dual system on this bike, it forced us to mod out the air box, and I had no idea what was about to happen, but I had to cut away that air box to get the header pipe underneath her and cross over. These bikes have the single pipe on the left side in 2008. I believe 2005, 6, and 7 they were on the right side, but in 2008 they crossed back to this side, the left side. So when I got the dual system, I had to bring the pipe around and underneath the airbox, and it was a challenge, and I was not gonna try and track down one of those 2009 or 2010 airboxes, because in those years they made these with dual pipes, so the airbox was actually fabricated for a crossover pipe. And in hindsight, it's probably what I should have done, but I didn't. Instead, I decided I'd just cut open the airbox, and basically I cut away the bottom side of it, ran that header underneath her, and that opened up a whole world of power that I think is inherently an issue with these bikes. I had already sensed that she was lacking air, and I know that because I had messed around with different air filters, and I had taken her out with no seat on and driven around testing her with no seat. And let me tell you, if you want to find out whether or not your bike wants more air, just take the seat off and ride her around and feel the difference. She'll tell you pretty quick if it's significant. In my case, it was huge. In other words, once that airbox was open and we turned her on with the dual Leos installed, I didn't know what the bike was, meaning it sounded so different, and the motor responded like it had just sniffed a line of coke. That's the only way to describe it. That motor exploded, and from that point on, that's how it's been. So I figured out the extra air with the big bore is important, and when I combine that with the dual pipes, the airflow just allowed her to increase that power a little more. And I got her on a dyno with the PC3, and I also had a PC5 with the auto tuner. And my guy, who's real good, that's all he does basically, is tune bikes. He messed around with this for some time, and the PC3 or the PC5 were very, very similar in performance. You could get about 57, 58 horses out of her. But then he just decided for some reason, let's unplug the power commander, let's see what she can do with just a direct line and no electronics interfering. First of all, he's not an auto tuner guy, so the auto tuner came off. I had the auto tuner on when I first put the PC5 on and thought that it was doing something good, but afterwards I can't say that that was the case. I'm pretty confident it wasn't. But then when he took off the auto tuner, it changed everything. The horsepower jumped up a couple, and he said, yeah, auto tuners, he's not a fan, so we're going to keep that off. But then what we will do is we're going to go ahead and test it without the PC5. And don't you know, that horsepower jumped up another horse. We got her up over 59, and that was sick. When we got her to that level, I was like, you got to be kidding me. So that's where we're at right now. 58, 59 horses. I mean, you put that on a bike that weighs about 260 pounds, 265 pounds, it's absolute mayhem. The fifth thing about this bike and why I love her so much is obvious. You're looking at it, right? I mean, she just screams Supermoto. She just screams, let's go race. I mean, she's got hey man, that's a Husqvarna, dude.
Oh man, that's nice.
You like that?
Yeah, that's real nice.
I appreciate it.
I just bought a bike myself.
What'd you get?
I got a KTM.
A KTM?
Yeah, there you go.
There you go.
Just a little starter's bike. I was like, man, that bike looks real nice.
Well, believe it or not, Husqvarna is now made by KTM. This one here.
Oh wow, that thing's easy.
Oh my dude, it is so much fun. I'm a Supermoto freak, so and
Trying to see what else I can do to my bike.
well, good meeting you.
Yeah, good meeting you too. I followed you on Instagram.
I appreciate it. All right, stay in touch. Well, I'm sorry for having to edit this video and not have a smooth running start to stop finish, but the bottom line is every time I stop I just start getting people coming around wanting to talk, and it's all good. I don't have any problem sharing the love, but I gotta get this video finished, so I gotta find a spot that's a little bit out of the way, so to speak, so I can do my walk around. So here we are, pulled over, and I will now do a little walk around on my SMR 510. Let y'all see what she looks like. Most of the time I'm on her, and all you're getting to see is the dashboard or people. But this is her. This is the beast. This is the Raptor. 2008 SMR 510, and for me, one of the top 5 reasons why I love this bike so much. She just reeks of Supermoto. Many features about her that jump out at me. I love the tight wheelbase, very aggressive fork length, and shortened swing arm. I've got the Marchesini wheels on her, which I added a couple of years ago. I mentioned that earlier. At the same time, I got the dual Leo Vinch pipes that you're looking at. Not easy to fit, but worth it. I'm not carrying a camera, so it's hard for me to show you, but the airbox mod I did, or the hack I should say, you can kind of see there. Basically I took away that whole bottom side, and that just opened up everything with her. Now yeah, she's just sporting white, and you might say, well, why don't I go crazy with her and add some color? I kind of have had thoughts of that, and you look at my pictures that I've had over the years of owning her, you'll see different looks, but I've never gone full hooligan on the plastics. A few reasons for that. The first is that I just never have found a pattern that jumps out at me and says, this is what I've got to have. The big reason is this white just makes her look so clean and so innocent, and I know that she is not that bike. So for me, having a white bike is almost tricking everybody. It is so subtle. I know the police, they just basically ignore me. They see this little thing coming, they can't imagine that it can do anything other than be just a little innocent dirt bike with a tag. And I like that. I'm not trying to draw attention to myself. I want to go off and have my fun and do things in a way that is making all the riding time worth it. And the last thing I want to do is be a police magnet. So one thing I've noticed is a lot of the bikes that are really, really loud with the colors have a tendency to attract more of the law enforcement vehicles that are out patrolling. So I have nothing against the white look at all. I think that pure innocent look is just too perfect for her because it's in complete contrast to what she really is, and I love that. Now the second 510 will be pretty much an identical design but in black. So what I'll do is have all black plastics, probably matted out, and add some red lettering. Regarding the mods and some of the other features and changes that I've done on her, there's a lot. She's got a Brembo Racing master cylinder up here. She's got the Supermoto clutch line that I just put in. I'm gonna get some more. I'm definitely gonna upgrade the brake line and the throttle line. I've added the LED headlight. I did a video on that. If you've got a 450 or a 510 and you want LEDs on it but don't want to spend or risk fitting something that's not necessarily made for this bike, you can't go wrong with this mod. The light is awesome. I love it, and it was so cheap. It's just a no-brainer for how I ride this bike. I removed the turn signals. I've got the fork-mounted LEDs. When I did some engine work, I added the red radiator hoses. I've done a breather valve mod on this one, like I mentioned in my other videos. This particular one has it going out the front of the bike, and as you can see, she's all clean. She just doesn't put out a lot through there. I mean, I get some after 1,000 or so miles coming out, but really it's nothing like the other bike. She's still very, very tight. The engine brake is still crazy strong, and I'll probably ride her for another 1,000 or 2 miles before I do a top end rebuild. I got to check the numbers on her. I think she's at probably 5,000 or 6,000 on this motor already, but she's just still super tight, super clean, when I change out the oil. Everything's good. The Leo Vinch pipes, I love the sound, I love the look, I love the titanium, I love the blue header. It just looks so good. I've got the oversized foot pegs. I've got a gripper seat that I added on top of the OEM. Actually, let me think a second. On this one, I'm pretty sure I had to remove, I had to remove the original seat cover and fit that on. I've got 2 or 3 of them. I love that gripper seat. If you're into wheelies, if you're a guy that likes to have a feel for his positioning and being able to maintain it, this is a winner. The drop down mirrors, these are 3-inch, soloracing.com, highly recommended. I use them on all my bikes actually. I've got a Motorsports steering dampener, and I don't know that I'd be able to enjoy this bike if I didn't have that. In fact, I'm struggling to find another one, and if anyone's got one or knows of a dampener that I can use on this bike, let me know, because I need a second one. I've got parts for the Motorsports, but they've been out of business for many years, over 10, and the previous owner, founder, his name's Kelly, and he's still in this business. I believe he works at Trail Tex, but he just doesn't have the parts, and I need them. So if somebody's selling parts for a steering dampener, let me know. I really want one for my second 510. When you're doing these high speed wheelies, it's just a little bit added security when you come down. I mentioned before I'm running the stock 15 tooth up front, and then in the back I went to the 43. I love that combination. The tire size is a bit tight. She's a 160 back there, and the Marchesini's allow me to fit that bigger tire because they're 5 inches wide. But if you look, there's very little room here, and on this side we get a little bit of issue with hitting on the tire, so I got to use this chain block. Got that from Jeff at Toxic Moto, and it kind of keeps the chain off the rubber, so I don't get a lot of wear there. What else has she got? She's got a slipper clutch. Once again, I'm not a flat track racer, but I will tell you that in the twisties, that slipper clutch, boy, it is amazing. And I'll probably add one to my other bike. Again, I'm not a racer, but when I get into those turns and you got a shift, it just cuts down on chattering and sliding out. Just keeps you connected so much more. It's hard to explain because, again, I'm not a racer, so I don't really know how to use it to its fullest extent. But the times that I call upon it, I can tell it's doing something, and it's all good. I think I've covered most everything with her. I do love that look. I'm not going to kid you. I could just sit here and look at her and look at her and look at her. It doesn't get old. I mean, there's times in the middle of the day, I'm not kidding you, I just go outside in my garage and look at her. I guess that's kind of sad. But I think anyone who loves their bike knows what I'm talking about. And that's what we do. So there you have it. The top 5 reasons why I love my 510. Obviously, the weight, just nothing like it on the road for me. There are light bikes out there. My Husqvarna is pretty light, and I'll get into the details of why I love her in another video. But for this one, the lightness, the power to weight ratio with those horsepowers that I've got, the uniqueness or the rareness of the bike, that's a key factor. The wheelies, crazy good. And of course, how she looks. All combined make this bike my first choice for getting around town. Anything 2 hours or less, I'm going with her. If I've got to do a trip that's 3, 4, 5 hours, probably going to take the 701. This bike can handle it, but there are limits as far as comfort and the range of that gas tank. I don't want to talk negative about this bike in any way, but maybe I'll do some little list of what you need to watch out for if you get a 510. I can probably come up with 5 or 6 things pretty easily. None of them are game breakers, or what I should say, reasons to get rid of the bike, but for some they could be an issue. For me, the wow factor and the fun factor is so strong that I'll gladly deal with all those little problems just to be able to get on her and get that smile on my face that just wants to stay all the time when you're riding. So I hope you liked this video. Sorry if it went too long, but as you can see, I just love looking at her, and I could probably stand here and talk for another hour about her. That's just how much I feel towards this bike. But they are a lot of fun. Got any questions? Looking for any information on the 450s or the 510s? Reach out. I'll try to help. Look for more of my stuff on YouTube. Follow me on Instagram, and you'll be up to date on everything that's happening with Motard Yoda here in the ATL on his Huskies and his Husqvarna. So stay safe in 2021, and I'll see ya on One Wheel.